everyone, and welcome to Homeland Security Today. I'm Kristina Tanasichuk, the executive editor of HSToday, and today, so many todays. Today, we're going to dive in to a new report from the Seafarers Rights International group, and it's called the Cabotage Laws of the World. And I bet some of you are wondering, why is HSToday talking about cabotage? But this is one of the most important laws around domestic maritime transport. And so in the US, the US Jones Act is the policy that governs our maritime transport, and it is administered pretty much by the US Coast Guard. And in collaboration with a lot of organizations like CBP, but it's very instrumental to national security and resilience. So joining me today are three leaders at the forefront of this conversation. Is Deirdre Fitzpatrick, the Executive Director of Seafarers Rights International and co-author of the report. Deirdre, welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleased to be here.
Excellent. All the way from London. She's zoomed in. See what I did there? And David Heindel, the president of the Seafarers International Union and chair of the ITF Seafarers section. Welcome, David.
Yeah, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Us too. And Jennifer Carpenter, the president of the American Maritime Partnership. So thank you all for joining me. We wanted to take a moment and turn it over to Deirdre to just give us some brief highlights of the Cabotage Laws of the World report, because there are some changes and they're kind of interesting given the global state of affairs. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kristina. So cabotage, cabotage, and specifically maritime cabotage, of course, is the practice of reserving a state's domestic coastal shipping for its own citizens. And cabotage laws, they can restrict how foreign flag vessels or foreign owned, built, or crewed vessels operate along a state's coastline or within the state's marine zones. And cabotage has a very long history, and cabotage laws have existed in some states for centuries. We have been working in this area of cabotage for around 10 years now. We looked at what reports existed on how many states have cabotage and what sort of cabotage laws there are out there. We were able to trace back from 1930 a report by the League of Nations, which found that 33 states around the world had cabotage. Then in 1991, your own US Maritime Administration was asked whether or not the US was unique in having cabotage laws. And they conducted a survey and discovered 47 states with cabotage. We came on board just before 2018, and we widened our scope, and we looked at all the laws of the states around the world, and we discovered 91 states with cabotage laws. And 7 years after that first edition of our report in 2018, we updated the report in 2025, and we have now discovered that 105 states around the world have cabotage. So this, we feel, is a very significant finding. And we found that cabotage has spread around the world faster than it ever had before in its century-long history. And we found that it exists in all the different regions of the world. And it exists in all the different political environments around the world. And so we're delighted to be able to enter into a discussion about this, and hopefully to discuss a little bit about why that might be happening and why it's a good thing or not a good thing.
Absolutely. So I think I appreciate that you kind of defined cabotage. HSToday has not only technical readers and listeners, but also the public who are interested in learning more about a nation's security and certainly America's security. So when we talk about cabotage laws, how do they enhance a nation's ability to protect maritime borders and infrastructure?
Well, I think the key thing is that cabotage laws restrict how foreign flag vessels can trade along the coastlines of countries. And the cabotage laws out there are all very different. Every country might define cabotage slightly differently, and every country may have different emphasis within its cabotage laws. And a country will have often many different reasons for having cabotage laws. There's no particular hierarchy of reasons, and the countries always aren't terribly transparent as to what their reasons are. But there are a list of reasons that one can see both in policy statements issued by countries and also in the laws as well. And these can range everything from security, from retaining skills of the mariners, from protecting the environment. And you could probably elicit, 10 or 12 different reasons that different countries will have. But fundamentally, they're doing it because they believe it's in the national interest of their country. Historically, it might have been economic, but now in the political era that we're living in, there are a lot more security concerns. And the emphasis, therefore, of the laws and the reasons and the motivations for countries having cabotage laws are changing all the time.
And Kristina, if I could just jump in there. So my day job is as president of the American Waterways Operators, which represents U.S. tugboat, towboat, and barge operators. So we've got members who operate at ports and harbors around the country, on all three coasts, on the Great Lakes, and also up and down our inland river systems. And sometimes I think when people hear cabotage, they are thinking ocean shipping, coastal shipping, but we are also talking about a nation's ability to control who is operating on its internal waterways. And so thanks to cabotage laws like the Jones Act, when there is a tow moving petrochemicals up or down the Mississippi River, that is a vessel that is owned, that is built, that is crewed in America. And that is crucially important from a homeland security standpoint, from a border security standpoint, to the ability of an agency like the U.S. Coast Guard to maintain maritime domain awareness. So I know we're going to talk more about that, but I just wanted to chime in and emphasize, we're not just talking about coast, we're talking about, literally the bloodstream of the country with internal waterways.
Absolutely. You kind of jumped right into that next question that I had, which was about the Jones Act and how it does contribute to America's national defense and strategic sea lift capabilities. So who wants to take that one? Jennifer, I feel like.
Dave's got it.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Well, it's as far as providing for the United States, the Jones Act assures that there are American mariners prepared to sail in times of emergency, whether it's due to hurricanes, conflict somewhere. We need to make sure that the vessels that the U.S. has under its flag, they have mariners to crew them. And the Jones Act provides that pool of mariners that would be necessary to activate some of these military vessels that would be utilized in times of emergency. If we didn't have the Jones Act here, we wouldn't have the mariners to be able to crew those vessels. I could point you to Europe, the United Kingdom, and most of the countries within Europe who pretty much gave away their sovereignty as far as operating vessels. They've lost all of that competencies that existed in some of those great maritime countries like Norway, in the Nordics, even the United Kingdom, who was once a great maritime nation. They've basically allowed their mariners to wither away, and there are no real mariners left in the UK or a lot of countries within Europe. the U.S. has taken a position that we will maintain a strong U.S. merchant marine, and of course that provides the necessary mariners that are required during times of national emergency.
Absolutely. So the report really shows the increase in cabotage laws. What are some of the trends, and what are you seeing the reasons for this increase? Sounds like David said some of it right there, but
Yes. Well, interestingly, when we discovered these new laws, so that we came out with our conclusion, there was no single reason for the spread of cabotage. Like everything, it was quite a complex picture. But what we were able to see is a number of influences that appeared to be motivating countries to enact these cabotage laws. In the first instance, it seemed that states often look at what other states are doing. And therefore, the fact that we're now starting to document how many countries do have cabotage laws was influencing some states in their decision to enact cabotage laws. Also, I think we were reviewing the situation at a very interesting time, post-COVID. And there, I think, were a number of COVID lessons when states began discussing measures to improve domestic shipping and to promote their national fleet in response to the supply chain crisis that had been caused by COVID. And I think also, we are seeing geopolitics, which is redrawing patterns of global trade. And some, major states are no longer making policy decisions solely on grounds of economic efficiency, but strategic concerns are playing a greater role. We also saw a trend of the expansion of cabotage into offshore matters. And this, of course, is enabled by technology developments and advances in marine science research and technology generally. So these are a combination of factors that we were seeing, and even where it was not clearly stated by the administration of a particular country as to what their reasoning was for enacting or expanding their cabotage laws or changing their cabotage laws, these were the issues that we saw that were being discussed and that appeared to be relevant in the changes that were occurring.
And when you look at the global tensions, I think many of us were probably of the same generation, living through a time when we kind of thought we would be seeing peace these days, as opposed to active wars. With these global tensions and certainly a very increased focus on supply chain threats, what risks do you believe nations face if they weaken or eliminate their cabotage protections? And do you see this as a huge, one of the big trends and reasons that countries are establishing cabotage rules when they may not have had them in the past?
Yes, I could speak from a US standpoint. So, those of us in the maritime world, Kristina, have been saying for many years the Jones Act is important because it gives us in the United States the ability to control our own supply chain. We can ensure reliable, secure service. We are not reliant on, another country, friend or foe, deciding that it's worth their time and money to operate here. And we're not subject to sort of blackmail if they control those cards and decide to take them and go home. And over the last few years, between COVID and these geopolitical tensions you've talked about, we've just seen this play out in real time. So think back to COVID and what you saw in the international shipping market. Remember those TV images of the lines of foreign flag vessels, outside LA Long Beach, dramatic spikes in prices in the international market. Well, we didn't have that in the Jones Act trade, because we had American carriers, American vessel owners, American mariners who, like, this is where we operate. This is our home turf. We're not going anywhere. This is what we do. And so it was steady as she goes. And U.S. non-contiguous states and territories, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, they didn't have to worry, oh boy, is this vessel going to Asia going to make it? No, with it, steady as she goes. So that is sort of, that's, I think, one of the lessons of COVID, and an example of the value of cabotage. From a geopolitical tension standpoint, I think some people might have thought we were, Chicken Little back in the day when we said, man, we don't want to be, sort of held hostage by the People's Republic of China if they decide they're taking all their vessels out of this market. Well, I don't think we sound that way anymore. It's very easy to see how a nation that loses the ability to transport vital cargoes between its own ports, whether those are coastal ports, whether that's bringing, petrochemicals from the Gulf Coast up to the Northeast, or, again, through that heartland of the U.S. on our rivers. A nation that lacks the ability to do that itself is very vulnerable. Thanks to the Jones Act, that is not where we are.
Did anyone else want to add anything? I mean, I have on my LinkedIn as my tagline, it doesn't matter until it matters. And this is one of those instances where, you think something doesn't matter because everything's going smoothly, but it's when kind of a crisis hits that you realize that that type of mistake can have very dire consequences. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Any additions to that?
Yeah, Kristina, if I might, I just wanted to add that our report was written as an objective legal assessment of what the position is. And we felt that would be helpful because there are a lot of arguments in support of cabotage and against cabotage. And you can read reports from both sides of the advocacy. But we felt it would be helpful just to record what states are actually doing. And so states have a very high sense of what's in their national interests. And whether you support cabotage or not, it's very clear that the majority of states have chosen to have cabotage laws for whatever reason they think is best from their countries. Obviously, every country is very different and you can't compare countries easily. But we think it's very significant that a majority, 105 states out of, well, obviously there are 193 UN states, but they don't all have coastlines. So 105 states have made a definitive decision to have cabotage laws. And we think the fact that that's an objective finding should be well known and should be well discussed and understood.
Which is 85%, sorry to interrupt, which is 85% of coastlines. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Covered by cabotage.
Well, we appreciate at HSToday anyone who is trying to add facts to any debate. So that is part of the reason we wanted to talk to all of you. And thank you for the report. Everyone run out and read it, The Cabotage Laws of the World, 2025. Yes. You heard it here. We just really thank you for that work and for continuing to add and really inject objective facts into conversations. So that's what HSToday tries to do. I hope you all stay in touch with us. If any of your respective organizations want to talk again, we certainly welcome you and welcome any contributions you'd like to make to our conversations here at HSToday around the security of really America and the world. So thank you all for joining us today, and I hope that we maintain this relationship. And we do have the link to the Cabotage Laws of the World report here at the end of this webinar, and certainly in our summary piece at HSToday. All of our work is free to the public and free to people in the Homeland Security community. We appreciate your time today, and thank you for your work on behalf of the world.
Thank you so much.